Stick around on Two Guys on a Porch today. We've got a special guest, a pastor, as we drink New Riff whiskey, put those two together. Pastor drinking with us this afternoon. And we're going to talk about mercy, Christian liberty, lots of other questions we'll cover today. Stick around, Two Guys on a Porch.
Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. I'm Jason. This is my buddy Bradford. Again, my trusty honey dog Kimber's off at playing at Wild Rose Kennels, chasing bumpers and birds. I know, I'm still in mourning, but we don't have her on the porch. It's most lonely at night when I come home. My wife still gives me a hug, but I don't have...
Not the same.
I don't have Kim staring deeply into my eyes telling me that she loves me. So here we are on the porch again. Today, we, as usual, are having a fellowship stick, a glass filled with brown water, always flavored with the flavor of friendship. Today, we are sharing our porch with my pastor, Scott Sauls. So we have somebody who is knowledgeable today. I'm excited about this, Scott. This has worked out well because you have a new book out. We get to sit out in this beautiful Tennessee summer afternoon, and we're enjoying the afternoon. And again, on the porch. At this point, stop, like, and subscribe. We need your numbers to keep on doing this on the porch. Appreciate your support. So before let's start with introducing Scott. Scott is Scott Sauls, author, pastor, father, husband, connoisseur of many things. I don't know how you would describe yourself. I would simply describe you as my pastor. I sat underneath you for years. I still, in my mind, sit underneath you. And thank you for coming on the porch today.
Great being with you guys. This is a great setup.
When you walked up, because you and I have only met briefly in the past, and for those of you watching, you may have noticed the fine hat that you're wearing today, which is an Auburn hat, my alma mater, and so I knew we would be best friends. So glad to have you here today.
Good to be here with you, Bradford. War Eagle,
Eagle,
as they say. I'm an Auburn dad, and you are an Auburn alum. So,
I'm a grad and dad.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely. And Scott, we wanted to honor you today with one of your favorite whiskeys, as related to us, was New Riff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, and I'm sure you're aware, the 2026 World Whiskey's Best Bourbon.
I was not aware of that.
Look how good your taste is.
Well, how about that? It was recommended to me by a connoisseur such as yourselves, and I liked it. You know, when I was, I'd never had any whiskey or bourbon before coming to Nashville. And realized very quickly if I wanted credibility with guys in Nashville, I probably needed to sip a little bit every now and then. But I didn't know where to start. And so somebody, I asked somebody, where do you start and how do you know the difference between a good and a bad whiskey? And he said, well, it's the one that you like.
That's exactly right.
That's the good one, and that just happens to be one that I like.
2-point scale, good, bad. That's what.
Yeah, it's in the good category.
Well, with that type of taste of picking out the World Whiskey of the Year, maybe if the whole pastor thing doesn't work out, you go with picking single barrels there.
I think I'll stick to what I'm doing, but yeah, I think that was just luck.
Scott, the whole point of our podcast is expressing, really to our audience, primarily men, the idea of friendship, and the porch being a conduit for fellowship as well as cigars and whiskey. We're smoking cigars today. You said you were not averse to secondhand smoke, so thank you for allowing us to partake.
What I said specifically was I enjoy.
Well, there you go.
Secondhand smoke, but I'm also not averse. Yes, so. But I'm not a first-hand smoker because I have a hypersensitivity to nicotine, and I can be around it. But if I take it in even to my mouth, it just absorbs into my system in a way that messes with me physiologically, and so I just get to enjoy the fruit of your smoking. And so like being around it just fine.
What is it about time like this for men in particular? I think women are better at it than men, that we have to be more intentional. What is it about this time that provides that conduit for fellowship?
That provides the cigar?
No. The opportunity to be on a porch together. What is it about cigars or whiskey that helps do that?
Men don't seem to just get together to talk. We need to like, hey, let's go have a bourbon together. Let's go do this together.
Right.
We seem to need a car to get to our destination camaraderie.
Yeah.
As opposed to women, they just get together and talk.
That's a really great insight. I heard it said one time, I can't remember by whom, but it was somebody who understood human beings, and they said women in general, this is not, well, maybe it is a stereotype, but in general, women relate really well face-to-face, and men relate really well side-to-side. And when men are going side-to-side, they're usually looking to something that they have in common. You know, C.S. Lewis talked about this in one of his books, where friendship is made when one person says to another, "Oh, you too? I thought I was the only one." Typically, guy friendships, they're looking at something and sharing a common excitement or appreciation for that thing.
Well, and I'm curious as we sit here and begin to nose and then ultimately taste this new riff. You as a trained pastor, I mean, you're seminary educated, learned in the Bible, much more so than I would say either of us are.
Absolutely.
So we're sitting here as Christians, not afraid to say that, drinking and smoking. How is that okay when a lot of people would disagree with that?
Well, Jesus' very first miracle was taking water and converting it into wine. And so there's your first example of a picture of Jesus blessing the consumption of a spirit, as it were.
Yeah.
And and some have argued, well, it was more like grape juice. It wasn't really alcoholic wine. It was grape juice, because Jesus is against drunkenness. And the easy answer to that is we're all sipping on this stuff. As far as I can tell, none of us are intoxicated. The Apostle Paul says in one of his letters, do not get drunk with wine, and it's the same word. And so if you can get drunk with it, how could it just be grape juice? And so there's something in there, and it's not just a New Testament and Jesus' first miracle thing. There is encouragement to enjoy and have great cheer with wine on the table in the Old Testament. It's in the Psalms. It's done by example in various places in the Bible. But the Scripture's answer to that is everything in moderation. Everything in creation is a gift that God has given to us, and we can either enjoy those gifts or we can exploit them. And our job is to discern what the difference is and what the boundaries are in that regard.
That's a good segue, because to your book, I've read your book. Hats off to you. Excellent.
Mercy King, by the way.
Mercy King. You've written several books. This one is phenomenal. And for our audience out there, Scott's not paying me to say this. It's just straightforward, really good. And one of the things, I guess we can dive into the book. To your point there, it's the Bible uses the word idolatry, but really, and you put this in your book, it's really any good thing taking the place of God. You put it 3 movements, and that first movement is using the biblical word, again, idolatry. I hesitate to use that word because you say that word and that just turns people off right away.
Yeah.
But really what idolatry is just taking God out of his proper place and putting something else in there. And in your book, that kind of really opened my eyes, I didn't think about, is comfort. People valuing comfort. Anything you value above anything else above God is an idol. Comfort was one of those things that you named in there. That was very eye-opening in there. I would highly encourage everybody to go out and grab a copy of this. I personally learned a lot from it. 3 movements, as Scott put it.
I was going to say, I'm curious your take in summarizing, which you kind of do in the table of contents. The first one has to do with longing, right? And I've got a question relative to that. But if I didn't summarize that correctly, correct me, and then talk about the next 2, if you would, what the next 2 movements were.
Okay, I'll have to open the book and look at it.
Well,
So here's the thing about writing a book.
And I'm going to drink the whiskey while you're doing that.
I can tell you.
I forget what I've written a week after
suffering,
I've written it.
The second movement is suffering.
Yeah, the longings we carry, the hurts we endure. I just want to get the words right. The longings we carry, the hurts we endure, and the hope that holds us.
Yeah.
So
And
those are 3 movements.
Yeah, I think what you did beautifully here, that you brought so many things together, and none of it is epiphany in the sense that, it's something I haven't heard of, but you brought it together well, that basically everybody and everybody's lacking is named somehow multiple times in that book, but then you pair it with the Mercy King, hence the title, of how God approaches us in our shortcomings and our, wherever it is, our sufferings, our hopelessness, and how he approaches us in that and redeems us. I think it's beautifully well written. You bring in sources from, you're quoting Nietzsche to Oprah Winfrey to Churchill. I mean, you brought so many sources together. It's coming at you from every different direction. I really, wonderful book.
Thanks, Jason. Glad you enjoy it.
Question I have on the longing part is that something that's innate, or is it cultured and nurtured, or a little bit of both?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, but God, I speak as a pastor. You introduced me as a pastor. God has put desire in the human heart, and goes all the way back to, in my mind, a what we call a catechism that Jason and I, in our tradition, have in common, where the very first question is, what is the chief end of a human being? What's the chief end of man, it says?
To glorify God.
To
and
glorify
enjoy him
God and to enjoy him forever. That's good. You just did a little denominational crossover from what, Church of Christ to
I grew up
Presbyterianism.
PCA.
So, but that last part is really important to your question. We are made, we are created to enjoy our Creator. And I think it was John Piper who said, we are most satisfied when God is most glorified in our lives and in our hearts. The bigger picture we have of him and the bigger vision and view and understanding we have of him, the more satisfied we are, the more comfort we have, and the more awe and wonder and and eagerness to surrender that we have. It all goes together. But desire is a big part of that. And you mentioned idolatry. Idolatry is essentially taking any good thing that God has given to us or entrusted to us and turning it into an ultimate thing, where it becomes our true north. It becomes the thing that matters more than anything else. It becomes like the ring to Gollum in Lord of the Rings, where he'll sacrifice relationship, he'll sacrifice health, he'll be lonely and isolated as long as he can have that ring, which he ends up losing both himself and the ring. It's a tragic story, but it's also a picture of what happens when we take something else and put it in the place of God. And the irony is, I'm gonna be better in my marriage, for instance. Marriage is something you could turn into an idol theoretically, right? I'm gonna be better in my marriage, and I'm gonna enjoy my marriage more if my marriage is second in my heart to God than I would if my marriage were put in front of God. C.S. Lewis, another one. Aim at heaven and you get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you get neither. That's a kind of a more contemporary expression of what the idolatry conversation leads us into.
You didn't quote this in your book, but I remember this from a trip to Italy. It was a family trip. There is right next to one of Michelangelo's sculptures is his poem On the Brink of Death. And in that poem, he confesses that art has become his value. And I don't know the poem well enough to quote it, but he said art was his passion and his God, and even he found that lacking, and he was dying to death because this poem was written at the end of his life, and so he was physically dying. But he realized that he painted the Sistine Chapel. He did all these sculptures, and this was the sculpture was one of the crucifixions of Christ and his suffering. And he got so mad at his art, he actually took a hammer and chopped off Christ's leg in the sculpture, and it's still chopped off. But he got frustrated that he was dying his second death of realizing this God that he had loved and put up his art was failing him. He realized that it was not what it was supposed to be, and it became, here is this great thing, to your point, anything can become an idol. This great thing, the Sistine Chapel that we still enjoy today, had become his God, and the poem was a confession of his idolatry.
Yeah, wow. I've never heard that story
so,
before.
On the Brink of Death.
But it reminds me of another artist named Tom Brady, who is poetry in motion on the football field, right? It's a different art form, but probably a lot of your viewers and listeners are familiar with the 60 Minutes interview that he did in his late 20s. He'd already won 3 Super Bowls. He was at the time married to the world's top supermodel, and the interviewer asked him, a question basically, how do you feel about being where you are at such a young age with so many accomplishments? You've lived multiple careers, and you're still only 28 or however old he was, and he said essentially his answer was, "There's got to be more than this. Why is it that this somehow isn't enough?" And of course, the theological answer to that is anything smaller than the universe itself is not grand enough to fill the human heart created in the image of God. Which is why the Bible, and I think Christians who are reading the Bible accurately, we understand that nothing is going to satisfy us until God is first. Because God is the only entity in the universe that is grand enough to fill the grandeur of one human heart. The human heart in many ways is more grand than the universe itself, which is why anything in creation or all of creation itself cannot do what only God can do.
So segue that into kind of the second movement, dealing with hurt. Because I know that hurt and suffering is maybe the chief defense for those who would deny the existence of God. That there's so much suffering in the world. I've experienced so much myself, for instance, that God can't exist. He would not allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a short-sighted conclusion. For a lot of reasons, in the Christian understanding of God, the fundamental and central thing about God is that he came to the earth to suffer. As far as I can tell, outside of somebody who's a pathological masochist, Jesus Christ is the only human being who chose to suffer, that this will be my path. And he agreed to it. He was part of the plan before the beginning of time, that we're going to create Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God. Don't ask me to explain that mystery. One God in 3 persons, but the Bible tells us that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit conferred together that they were going to create all that there is, and that Jesus would come in and clean up the mess that the people that God created would make by giving himself. And so that's the first answer, is that God did not exempt himself from the things that make God a difficult subject for us when we talk about suffering. The second thing is that the Bible itself is overly emphatic about how compassionate and merciful God is toward those who suffer. That Jesus, if you track his life in the four Gospels, he is always preferring those who are suffering and those who are outcast and those who are hurting and those who are bleeding on the ground. Jesus' answer was, I am the resurrection and the life. The ones who believe in me, though they die, yet will they live. Essentially saying, if you get 70, 80 years here, put that into the grand scheme of things, that if you're a believer in Christ, you get infinite years at the end of it. Where, as C.S. Lewis again says, heaven is going to work backward and turn even our agony into glory. Like we've all woken up from a nightmare, right? That is how the Bible presents heaven working for those who have suffered, which is why we get the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Blessed are those who experience loss. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. How could he say that? Because there's a bigger picture than the suffering and the hardship of the moment. And so I would just say also, and I would understand if somebody, even after hearing that, is still skeptical. I would also say this, just from a practical standpoint. What are the people in your life proud of most in your character? And how much suffering did you have to go through in order to become kind, or in order to become patient, or in order to become compassionate and merciful? Because typically when people have those attributes, they've been through something. Some kind of grind has shaped them into a better human being who shows up better for people. A lot of people, Jason, you're in the helps profession, right? You're a surgeon. A lot of people who get into helps professions because of some hurt that they've experienced or they've been close to and observed close enough where they want to spend the rest of their lives helping other people. And so, that's my mouthful on that.
Well, and to steal a question that you had raised earlier.
I was about to.
Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
about to ask. So the question I had for you after reading this book and knowing you personally, knowing your life, and you've been through a tough time recently. Could you have written this book 10, 15 years ago versus today? I know your life. You had this resignation from Christ Press, our church, a difficult time for you, difficult time for the church, and a suffering for you. Could you, to your point that you just articulated, could you have written this book 15 years ago? Is this an example of that suffering that you are able to write this book today because of what you've been through?
Well, I would say I've had 4 seasons of what I would call unusual suffering. I still wouldn't put myself in the same category of, say, Elie Wiesel, who suffered the Holocaust, or there are a lot of people who know certain forms of suffering, women who are assaulted, things of that sort, soldiers who lose friends at war or who lose a limb. Those are forms of suffering I would never want to compare my own to. But I've had 4 particular seasons over the course of my life that were devastating, and so I would say I could have written a book like this 15 years ago, but it wouldn't be the same one, because with each subsequent trial, remember the Bible itself says, "Count it all joy when you face various trials." To put a lipstick on a pig, maybe opportunity to go through a trial. You become further refined, further developed in your ability to have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control be the driving forces in your life, being your most aspirational goals, wanting to be a person of character. Usually there's some kind of wound that they've experienced or witnessed along the way that's had a formative effect on that. And so I can write a better book now, and I would guess that 10 years from now, I'll look back and say, it could be better if I added one more chapter and I edited these 3 chapters. But that's just the way it works.
So what do you say to the person that, if we acknowledge that, okay, suffering is a reality, we've all experienced that to varying degrees.
More than reality, it's designed. What Scott's saying, and I think
Fair.
it's in light. It's not only a reality; it's part of the plan.
Right. So, but does that put us in a posture of where some of us is going, oh, when's the other shoe going to drop? It's been a while since I've been through suffering. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
And you kind of live in that fearful anticipation.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that?
So I have a few mentors, like small handful of mentors that I go to with questions like that, because by disposition, I'm an anxious person. I think that goes with being a type A, having a type A personality. There are anxious elements that go with that. And so it's always good to have people who are older and wiser to process with. But he took me off guard, this one particular, mentor of mine. He's in his 70s now. He said, I said, what? I was going through one of those what if things, like, what if this happens? And he said, well, this could happen, but this, just if a higher mark is even worse, he said, this could happen too. And so could this, and so could this, and so could this. And he said, and he was talking from his own experience. He says, the way that I contend with my what ifs is I say, all right, instead of looking away from the worst case scenario, I'm going to look straight into it. And I'm going to say, okay, if this does happen, what difference will that make immediately? What difference will it make 5 years from now? What difference will it make 10 years from now? What difference will it make 10,000 years? Which was a reference to the hymn Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. And again, our worst day in heaven is going to be infinitely better than our best day in the life we're living right now. Easier said than done, much easier to preach than it is to live. But it's also true for those who are, tethered to Christ by faith, as I know both of you are, and a lot of your friends are. And I'm also pretty direct with somebody who's resistant to hope in Christ and like, that's not for me. I'm like, well, I have no hope for you. I really have no real hope to offer you besides wishful thinking that I hope it gets better for you. But I have no hope to offer beyond that I'm aware of. And the only hope I can give you is I'm not going to walk away from you. I'm not going to stop being your friend. But I also don't have what it takes to be the answer to what you're sharing. And so I know that's going to be probably a hard thing for some listeners to hear, but just coming from the vantage point of a follower of Christ, if you're with him, the best is always yet to come. And if you resist him, I don't know what to say to that.
Right.
Except I pray that God will have mercy on your situation, whatever that looks like.
So we're going to circle back because we appreciate you being willing to spend more time with us on the porch. And as you take a sip of that new Riff, we've got a couple of things for you to try that would compare nicely to the new Riff.
I don't know. I think this podcast, we've been so drinking from the fountain here that we haven't talked about New Riff at all.
Barely. And we've got time for that. But we've got some other things to compare that we'll do on the next episode. So we're going to take a break and ask you guys to join us next time on Two Guys on a Porch as we continue our conversation with Scott Sauls. Thank you, guys.
Stay tuned. We got some great stuff coming up. This new Riff is wonderful. We'll talk about that next time. See you in a bit.
Please like and subscribe, rate, all the stuff you do on all the social media platforms. Thanks, guys.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at TwoGuysOnAPorch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag